Folks, we are working on chowder. Doesn't have to be a mixture, it could be your favorite seafood in it, and I can't wait to show you what it looks like. So, what exactly is chowder? A very luscious, hearty soup commonly found in New England. Now, historically, this dish was brought by the Breton fishermen who traveled to Newfoundland, and from there it had been shared through Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and New England, very big seafood communities. The original first chowder was actually fish or shellfish, salt pork, potatoes, onions, and milk. They never used bacon in this, folks. So we're looking at chowder being very unique all on its own. Now, the French word chaudière, meaning cauldron, is believed to be where the word chowder was born. There are many other versions of chowder, but not all are based on the same principles of the original. There's no roux, slurry, no bacon. The thickening process comes from the cream and the starch. So here are some great resources for some fun reading. I highly recommend Serious Pig by John Thorne. Food historians have often dived into this subject. It's really great reading. So certainly if you have time, take a look. So with my recipe, it's for 8 to 12 servings, but you can scale it down all on your own. And I do offer some substitution ideas as well. So the core recipe is here. You may want to pause the video. For me and my demographic as of right now, cream and salt pork are wicked expensive. I actually used a combination of cream and half for this. And because I had leftover prosciutto that I didn't want to go bad, I used that instead of the salt pork. So this is a very easy, simple recipe. With the seafood, you don't have to do a mixture, guys. So here we are. As a reference point, the celery, the onion. I had some really tiny potatoes, adorable, fresh garlic, and here's that leftover prosciutto I mentioned. This is all going to be finely diced except for the potato. I want the potato to be small, bite-sized, but this helps ensure proper cooking. As a result of a chowder, you always start with butter. Yes, the recipe calls for 1 stick of butter, but that's as is. If you scale it down, it won't get so scary for you. We're actually using 2 fats in the beginning here, so we're going to do the butter. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil. We want to avoid doing the fond or the brownie bits that are normally found at the bottom of the pan or pot. We want to keep the chowder its beautiful creamy white color. So we're going to control how far that butter cooks, and we want to keep it as clean as possible. Now, there's no real huge list of spices in this. We're just using thyme and white pepper. So as you can see right here, they're dried. So the purpose of this going into the butter and oil, I want this to bloom. I want this to be rehydrated. This is going to cook fast on you, so you do not walk away. You certainly want to make sure that you're stirring this periodically, because we don't want to burn this. And ultimately, the goal is we don't want this to be dry. If I were to hit it at the end with the thyme, you're going to be picking it out of your teeth. That drives me bonkers. You definitely don't want to be doing that. So that's why we're doing this to the thyme right now. So we've got it all fully melted. Oh my God, if you're not enjoying the thyme facial, I don't know what to tell you. It's awesome. At this point, it's only after a few minutes that this is going to be at this point. We'll go ahead and add the vegetables and the salt pork, or in my case, the prosciutto. Now that fine dice there, and keeping the potato as a bite size is going to be perfect. We're not cooking this all the way because we still have to worry about staging the seafood, adding the stock, adding the cream, and allowing it to thicken gently. This is another, do not walk away. You want to keep stirring this. The garlic is on the side. We don't want to add that with this just yet. That garlic's going to cook so freaking fast, you're pretty much going to burn it. So after about 4 to 5 minutes roughly, it's going to depend on the heat source you use, of course. That's when we're going to hit this with the garlic that we prepped. And as you can see here, this is beautifully mixed. Oh my God, I love the look of that. We'll just continue to mix this for the next few minutes here. And ultimately, we want to bring this to where the potato is partially cooked. The middle is going to be white, and just around the white fleshy part of the potato, it'll start looking like it's almost fully cooked. So we're going to hit it with the garlic. And because it's 8 to 12 servings, that's really not a whole lot of garlic. It actually offers just the right flavor that I'm looking for. So mix that in well. That way there's no clumpy lumps of garlic anywhere. I had that minced really well, so that shouldn't happen at this point. And as you can see right here, we're at that stage. Everything is par cooked. We are going to be ready to start looking at our stock. And we'll get that added here. Now, yes, seafood, you typically use seafood stock or clam stock or fish stock. I know how expensive it can get. I make my own at home. Here's some seafood stock I yanked from the freezer. You can most certainly use vegetable stock. You may not have the full-on attack to the face of seafood flavor, but when you put the fresh seafood in, you're definitely going to get that flavor to come through. So don't feel bad about it. Not all is lost. So I've got some seafood stock here that just went in. I want to get this mixed up so none of the vegetables are sticking together. And at this point, we want to bring it up to temp because now we're going to start considering staging. What do I mean by staging seafood? We know different cooking times can either make or break you. We know seafood should be added in order of how long it takes to cook. This is Chowder fish. Yes, there is such a thing as Chowder fish in my demographic. We got a chain of grocery stores out here that sells Chowder fish like $2.99 to $4.99 a pound, depending upon the sale. It's got haddock, cod, a variety of white fish. It's awesome. They did all the work for me. I don't have to cut it. This is going to take about 5 minutes, again, depending on heat source. But I don't want it to fully cook, otherwise it's going to start breaking down into mush. So I'm going to take a look at this fish now that it's in the fluid. I'm going to be looking to see if it's still maintaining integrity. The middle of it is still going to have that milky color to it that shows that it's still raw. And this has only been in here for a couple minutes. That's going to tell me when I can add my next seafood, which would be scallops. The scallops are going to technically cook a little bit faster than the haddock. Look at these, they're beautiful. Nice, big, juicy, plumpy. Oh my God. So we're going to add that. Yes, it is a private moment for me, folks. Seafood stock, seafood, chowdahs. Oh, it's beautiful. So by adding fresh seafood to something already hot, we've lost some of the temperature. We want this to come back up to temperature gradually. So that's why we're waiting to add the next seafood item. I'm also going to look at the scallop itself. I'm going to actually pull one out here. See how the little bubbles are forming, by the way? That lets me know the temp is back up, which is perfect. So I'm going to check one of my scallops. I'm just going to lightly poke at it so I can feel whether or not it's fully cooked or not. In this case, in staging, I know that this still has more time to cook, which is perfect. Because now I want to put the seafood in that cooks wicked fast. So we're talking, yeah, I went there, folks, squid. I got both tubes and tentacles because the flavor's great. The theatrical look with the tentacles, I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for the way it looks. It looks amazing. They're going to cook so fast. You're going to see the tentacles start to curl up a little bit. That heat hits it so fast. And you're actually looking at it from a boing. Look at that. Isn't it awesome? So I have clam strips here with its own clam juice, which is awesome. More flavor to the pot. And I know for a fact within the next 1 to 2 minutes, we are going to be ready to add the cream. This seafood is officially at the place where I need it to be. And I gotta tell you, the cooking process, it may sound a lot, but if you have everything set up ahead of time, this is the easiest, fastest thing you can make. You definitely want to be careful about time and temperature control. Overcooking seafood can happen. That's why we want to maintain that heat as carefully as possible. Now, for me, I used a combination of both half and half and cream. I had a little bit of cream left over in the fridge. Typically, this would be all cream. You can still achieve the same chowdery goodness if you just want to use half and half. I know cream is very expensive right now. I know in my demographic, it's one of those strategic things you got to do throughout the year. Figure out when you want to make certain dishes before it breaks the budget. So we're going to start this with some half and half. I grabbed a quart. That's going to go into this here very soon. And honestly, this is so beautiful. Now you see all the thyme. Don't worry about it, because once we start hitting this with the cream, the dairy components, I should say, the heat's going to help start in the thickening process between the cream and the potatoes. I don't use roux in mine. You don't need roux if you're doing this correctly. Some folks do like a little help from a roux. Some like it from a slurry. Restaurants do that, though. They tend to use the roux and the slurry for shelf stability, because then they can hold it. Here, I had a separate bowl of my cream, and I put some of the stock, the base of this from the pot, into the bowl, because I wanted the cream to come up to a little bit more of a temperature, because eventually I'm going to hit it back into the pot so I can have that mixed together and incorporate well. Now, chowder is not meant to be thick, people. If you're going to a restaurant and you can put your spoon in your bowl and it sticks there and it doesn't move, or it slowly moves downward, that's not a proper chowder. It's either overcooked or they hit it with so much roux and slurry that you're not going to get that great chowder flavor. You're just going to taste a lot of starchy residue. Now, this is at the beginning stages. I want that heat to come together so we can get some thickening. That's why we're using the whisk here. And as you can see, the thyme is breaking up. It's no longer sitting in that pool of butter and olive oil. This is all coming together gradually. Now again, depending on your heat source, this can take an additional 5 minutes. It could take longer. It could be quicker. I never do a chowder with high heat because there's a high risk of the dairy breaking. Now, a way to determine thin versus thick, take a spoon, dunk it, and run your finger on the back. You'll get the consistency that you like based on how this looks on the back of your spoon. And as a result, we went with a beautiful bodied chowder. You could serve it in a bread bowl or a regular bowl. Don't forget your oyster crackers as saltines and the beeyah. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Have a good one.